You know it's this. Take a perk and a talk of that shit. Money swallowed like sis. Did it perfect in the kid. Got a billion who sang on my head. Look me better put on the road I just spent. I know we got $1 million. The devil that shit ain't not cheaper again.
Hello and welcome back, fellow anime lovers, to MangaMuse. I am delighted to have you join us once again in the world of fanfiction and fantasy. This is the 6th part of What If Deku and Hero Academia Joins Super Sentai. Special note, this fanfic is written and a masterpiece of GokuMuto on FANFICTIONnet. Do check and support the author too. Now smash the like, share and subscribe button for more. Also press the bell icon so that you never miss such great parts. Thanks for the introduction. Now let's dive into the world. Best prepare yourself for this. What you're about to see is going to be super mind-blowing. USADA warned them. If seeing the Sentai history shocked you as it did earlier, then this next batch of information is going to be worse, Gorosaki added as he was worried about their mental health. Come on, it can't be that insane, Mirko said in a cocky tone as she wasn't worried in the slightest. She just wanted to know more about the other heroes Ren spoke of and see if they're a good challenge for her. Didn't seeing the Sentai history teach you anything, woman? Aizawa said, giving her a dirty look. These other world heroes face threats that make what we deal with look like a joke. Agreed, I suggest we mentally prepare ourselves for what Mr. Zero here will see us, Nizu said as he was excited to know about these other world heroes' history. Killjoys. Mirko said, looking the other way with Ryukyu patting her friend's shoulder. Come on. Come on. Come on. Come on. Nijire said, bouncing up and down from her seat in anticipation of the wait. Saw us, please Mr. God. The Judgment God just slightly chuckles at the girl's curiosity. As yous wish, Nijire, in 3, 2, 1. He said before snapping his fingers again to transfer more information into their minds. Just like before, everyone in the room except for Zero, Nick, USADA, Gorosaki, and Ran were seeing everything about the Kamen Riders, Space Sheriffs, Ultraman, and all the Marvel and DC universes. Just like before, for a second time, everyone in the room had stunned faces with God smack with information transfer. There was the sound of silence that surrounded the room. Eyes were left widened to new proportions, disbelief and complete shock in their eyes. Their jaws were left slack-jawed almost to the point that any more would see them dislocate. The thought of seeing the Super Sentai information wouldn't surprise them anymore, but they were very, very, very wrong because this was too much. They had just witnessed possibly a much darker and crueler version of villains they'd seen in their lives. However, with the amazing heroes that fought against these evils on a daily basis, just like the Super Sentai. God, I think I might need alcohol after this SHT. Mirko shouted as she had enough of all of this mind-blowing SHT for one day. I mean, seriously. What the F is up with these other worlds and the SHT the heroes fight against? I might just take you up on that suggestion, Ryukyu said as she was having a hard time trying to process all of this the best she could. It's impressive and scary that we don't face half of the stuff they deal with. Same here, sisters. Pixie Bob said, rubbing her head to ease her headache. This is just too much. A lot of the heroes and villains' powers from those worlds are so broken, it's not even funny. Ragdoll said as she never imagined that they could be so strong. Man, I never expect a whole generation of quirkless heroes to exist, let alone one that saved the world multiple times, along with other superpowered heroes more powerful than us, Tiger said in disbelief and a broken tone. I know what you mean. It makes me wonder if there was a group similar to the Super Sentai, Kamen Riders, Justice League, Avengers, and the other heroes in our world. Midnight said as she thought about their world and the heroes there. Who knows, I think I read an article once about a group of heroes pre-quirk era, but there was little to no information about them, not even their names were mentioned, Tsukachi added with a concerned tone. Still, to think such evil beings exist. Mandalay spoke in a sour tone with her head down on the floor. Imagine if the Sentai, Riders, Sheriffs, Ultraman, Justice League, Avengers, and more of the other heroes' enemies were in our world. I'm not sure us pro-heroes will be enough to stop such dangerous foes. Even with All Might before he got his injury. She said as he couldn't help but feel powerless just thinking about the other world villains. No, I fully agree with what you said, Toshinori said as he already accepted the truth. I don't think even if I was in my prime, I could take on most of the threats these other world heroes face. Ugh, did you really have to bring that up? We get it. These level threats are too much for us to handle. Mirko complained like a little girl, hoping that this was just a dream and she was sleeping in her bed. Sorry to be a downer but I can't help but think about it. Plus, they have villains worse than Shocker and the Black Cross Army. Mandalay said in her defense. Yes, Shocker, Zaniac Space Empire, giant monsters attacks, evil space villains, Thanos, the Brotherhood, the League of Shadows, Darkseid, and even more enemies and organizations. Aizawa listed out all the dangerous threats that the heroes from the other worlds deal with, as gritted his teeth thinking about all of these villains that they wouldn't stand a chance again. Who knows how many more dangerous threats that are out there? Possibly more powerful than the last. And the responsibility is forced upon most of them, while some choose to take up the responsibility when we heroes are supposed to be the ones doing our jobs. He said as the hero didn't notice that he clenched his fist tightly. This just shows us that we need to prepare our students for what's out there, Nizu said with his head slightly down but had a serious expression. If any villain from our world, let alone All for One, were to take these kinds of measures to spread their reign, then we need to train the next generation of heroes better and more prepared for this kind of threats. To which the teacher of UA and Pro Heroes nodded. It won't surprise me if that man were to go this far to achieve his goals, Toshinori said as he balled up his hand in rage at the thought of All for One using the same methods as the other world villains. I'll be sure to put him down for good, for the sake of everyone in the world. Eri didn't say anything but was beyond amazed that she had seen and hoped some of the heroes were in this world. Inko's eyes were left widened and full of disbelief, her brain failing to comprehend that such worlds had heroes like this. Those threats that the other heroes fight against. Tamaki said, shivering from the information. They make the villains we face look like kids throwing tantrums. True. They have aliens, armor, magic, robots, quirkless, and other heroes to fight against that evil. Mirio said as never felt like this before, after witnessing the other worlds. I know, I never felt so many goosebumps in my life. Nijire yelled out in excitement with a grin. But the heroes from those worlds are incredible. She admitted as she was holding on to a stunned Midoriya, as he was very quiet dealing with what he saw in his own way. Midoriya's pencil dropped to the floor, falling from the blue buster's slack hand. His emotions were mixed all over the place. So many amazing heroes and all of the things they've accomplished to defend their worlds from unstoppable evils, some of them were quirkless just like him. This just confirmed that even the quirkless can be heroes if they try and that everything their society has told them was wrong. If only heroes like that existed in our world. Midoriya thought as he was wiping the tears from his eyes. Nizu cleared his throat to get the attention of the room. Now that we have more information on what allowed Midoriya and Amamiya to fight was with the use of their morphers and buster powers, but not quirks. We now know that they won't be charged for illegal quirk usage. Nizu said, letting both Midoriya and Inko let out a sigh of relief, and Ren nodded silently. That being said, we can't have you two continue to run around unsupervised and get into more trouble, so you both will take the UA entrance exam. You need to register with me to receive permission to use it as a support item. He suggested. Midoriya nodded at this and understood that any kind of equipment used must be approved before the start of the exam, and Ren just stayed silent to see where he was going with this. Midoriya and Ren were glad that he was still being allowed to enter the exam after finding out what happened that day. I also would like to help you create a new team of Super Sentai in our world and to have you train with a few of the UA teachers to help the both of you, Nizu added, making Midoriya's mouth was agape and Ren had a surprised look on his face from what they heard Nizu said. You seriously want to help us make a new Sentai team? Ren asked the little man. Of course. After seeing the Super Sentai history, along with the other heroes, I'm more than willing to help support your goal. Nizu happily said to him with sparkling in his eyes. Also Toshinori already informed me ahead about you wanting to come to UA. He said, looking at the symbol of peace, who was awkwardly looking away. Why you want us to train at UA with the teachers? This didn't make any sense to him since he and Ren weren't students and it was almost unheard of for someone not affiliated with the school to train at UA. When he saw Nizu nod his head yes, Midoriya reached to pinch his arm. Nope, not dreaming. Midoriya bowed heavily at the waist. Thank you so much for your kindness, sir. He said, tears running down his face. Nizu just smiled. You are quite welcome, young man, and I look forward to having you both join UA next year. He said to the two boys. I was planning to go to the UA anyway since Toshinori suggested it. Ren said before his tone got serious. But I don't plan ever getting one of those hero licenses. Which surprised everyone there. You don't want a hero license? Kid, you do realize you can't perform any hero's duties without a license. Tiger said to him in a concerned tone. He's right, you know. Without a license, people will still see you as a vigilante or villain. Mandalay said to him. I don't plan on being a pro hero. I plan on being a Super Sentai. Ren said, making it very clear to them. I'm sure you remember my speech yesterday. My views on that haven't changed. I still think it's wrong for a hero to accept money for helping people, something any able person should be doing. I've got to pay my bills somehow though, so I may as well get paid for a job, instead of accepting rewards for my responsibility, just like the other Sentai and writers who live normal lives and still find time to do their duties. So why should I do that? I don't care if everybody calls or sees me as a villain. I'm fine being a hero that everybody hates, as long as I'm about to keep them safe. Why should I get a license just to make people like me? So I can be one of your government's whipping dogs? That would be like taking back everything I just said on the news and saying your society was correct. He explained. Nobody knew what to say. To balance a hero's life and a job in business no less, was nearly impossible. This boy would have a hard life indeed, but was willing to do so in order to hold on to his ideas. Nizu expected the boy to argue, but he wasn't expecting this. He thought this through. He's considering everything, even his previous message. He thought before saying something. It sounds like you don't trust the government. He commented. Maybe, I don't. It all depends on who's running it. If it's someone whose interest is for the people, then I support. Ren answered as he sat back in his seat. But if they abandon or oppress the people they govern, then you're on my SHT list, like your corrupted government who created this idiotic hero system. He explained that he thought of certain governments in alternate worlds who abandoned or used their people just for personal gain. Midoriya takes Ren's words to heart and can agree with him if the governments were like that. He wouldn't want to be part of that. Or at least he would want to change it for the better. The big three and heroes all have conflicting thoughts about Ren's words, some wouldn't want to be part of that system, and some are in denial about it. But didn't ignore the thought after seeing the bigger picture. Inko felt out of place here in this conversation. But she had to agree that she wouldn't want to be a part of an oppressive system. The three buddy roids were in agreement with Ren, as they had seen their fair share of evil governments. Nizu's face was unreasonable as he thought about the HPSC. He knew they wouldn't be perfect because of a few secret instances they kept from the public. Especially, Jayuno Wada and the shady rumors about him. He's not wrong, you know. Zero said to them. The Hero Public Safety Commission has a lot of dirty secrets. Everyone, but Ren and Nizu looked at me in confusion. What are you talking about? Tsukachi asked in confusion. I'm pretty sure some of you have heard of the former pro-hero Lady Nagant. The god said, making the heroes in the room eyes widen from the name alone. Inko had a look of curiosity on her face, as the name felt familiar to her for some strange reason. What do you mean? Toshinori asked as all the heroes heard what happened to her. The story about her being arrested for shooting another hero is fake. Zero told them. Then what really happened? Yusada asked incuriously as he felt bad for what happened to her. Your government turned her into their personal assassin. Zero revealed the horror truth to them as everyone in the room didn't want to believe it. When Kana Tsutsumi was a young girl, the former president of the Hero Public Safety Commission invited her to join their agency. With a bright sense of optimism at becoming a great pro-hero, she accepted. For years the HPSC trained her conscientiously until she became really skillful with her rifle quirk, becoming not only a popular hero but also the best marksman in all of Japan. Her skill and precision with her shots were admired and envied by the likes of Snipe and other heroes with long-range quirks. However, the commission primarily used her for classified missions, secretly disposing of villains planning to commit acts of terrorism and corrupt heroes seeking more fame and fortune. At first, she carried out these orders efficiently and without question, but over time the stress of the seemingly never-ending string of murders began to get to her, all the while needing to keep the front as a public pro-hero. One day, she came across a group of kids who wanted to shake her hand, leading her to hallucinate her completely bloody hand, and resulting in her questioning her purpose as merely just a cog to maintain the phony illusion of your society. Lady Nagant's disillusionment came to a breaking point when the then president of the Public Safety Commission ordered her to make 2 corrupt heroes who were taking advantage of the system go missing. She expressed her reservations about the order, questioning whether the lack of transparency was akin to brainwashing. When his insistence on the act's necessity failed to convince her, the president gave Lady Nagant a veiled threat. This proved to be the last straw for her, with Lady Nagant killing the former HPSC president in response. She was promptly arrested and incarcerated in Tartarus. The HPSC covered up the nature of her arrest, claiming that she killed a fellow hero in an argument instead. The god finished to see the horrified, shocked looks on everyone's faces after hearing the tragic messed-up story from the once well-known heroine. You're lying, right? Aizawa asked the god in disbelief as this shook him. He's telling the truth, Tsukachi said in absolute shock, as he detected no lies during the god's story about Lady Nagant. The others looked at the true man in disbelief. If he said it was the truth, then the god was not lying about the fate of Lady Nagant. Aizawa. Zero with a straight face as he looked Aizawa in the eyes. Not once have I lied since speaking with you all. I know everything about this world and every human secret in it. I even know how quirk appeared in your world, which I won't say for obvious reasons. So whether you believe me or not is up to you in the end. He finished his speech to the hero. The heroes said nothing as this god has been completely honest with them this entire conversation. The more and more they thought about it, the more they realized something was wrong with Lady Nagant. In the past, she used to smile a lot, but she stopped and started to look at her hands like there was something on them. Now all the puzzles were falling into place thinking of Zero's explanation. Nizu knew that there was something strange about the Lady Nagant incident and the former HPSC president disappeared. From what he could tell, Lady Nagant hasn't been let out of solitary confinement yet. Apparently, she's been trying to break out, but Nizu didn't buy it at all. Now with Zero confirming the truth about the incident, Nizu's trust and respect for the HPSC has dramatically dropped. Ren was very apprehensive about this. None of this was sitting well with him. The HPSC was responsible for destroying a young girl's dreams of being a hero and turning her into a cold-blooded killer just to keep control. Inko's eyes widened in pure shock after hearing the woman's real name as it was finally coming back to her. They weren't the only ones, as Midoriya, Mirio, Nijire, Tamaki, Nick, Yusada, Gorosaki, and Eri were thinking the same thing. Wow. Gorosaki said, rubbing his forehead. It makes sense to me. Your government does whatever it can to make people think everything is fine. I mean, look at Lady Nagant. Ren said in a pissed tone with his arms crossed. Which is why I don't want to be a part of it. Kana. Inko said with a surprised tone, tears falling down her face, as everyone looked at the woman. So that's what happened to her. Mom? Are you alright? Midoriya said with concern as he saw her crying. I'm fine, Izuku. It's just that. Inko said while wiping the tears from her eyes. I finally know now what happened to Kana, after all these years. She said, shocked that heroes were in the room. Wait, hold on a second here. You knew Lady Nagant? Ryukyu asked with surprise. Yes. We've been friends for years since I met her back in middle school. Inko said, remembering the good old days when she was younger. In fact, she would sometimes visit me and my husband, and also look after Izuku when he was younger. She said, making her son look at her in surprise. But I don't remember anything of that, Midoriya said in confusion as he didn't remember meeting Lady Nagant. You probably don't remember any of that since you were too young. But you would always enjoy having her come over and calling her Auntie Kana with you clinging on to her leg. Inko said with a smile, as her son was bright red from embarrassment with the others giving a light chuckle at the cute sight. Nijire grinned from ear to ear, obviously enjoying the reaction on Midoriya's face. So Auntie Kana? She asked, a sly tone echoing in her voice. Please stop. Midoriya said, hiding his face from the pretty girl. Nijire reached up to gently squeeze his cheeks, causing the Sentai to back his head away from her reach but was unable to stop her. But I started to notice that Kana was acting strange after she became a pro-hero, Inko said as her face turned into a bitter smile with her eyes on the floor. She wasn't smiling as much, not coming over to pay a visit like she usually does, and then sooner or later we stopped talking. Since that, I haven't heard a word about her since then until now. I had no idea that she went through something so trouble. She looked like she was about to break down crying again. Mom. Midoriya said as he could see the painful look on her face. The commission takes kids with amazing quirks like Lady Nagant and trains them to become heroes in the spotlight while in the shadows, assassins and spies that do their dirty work. Zero revealed more to them. Then that means Hawks is. Tsukachi's eyes widened from the realization. Yes, he's a puppet of the commission as well. He was trained at a young age to become their tool after Lady Nagant, who too was trained at a young age. Zero said, making Inko lower her head in sadness. Mirko clenched her fists. FBSTRDS. She growled in anger. I'm pretty sure they would do the same thing to Eri if they learned about her power, Ragdoll said with worry as it freaked out Eri a bit. Absolutely not. I refuse to let those monsters use my little sister like she was some kind of tool. Ren said in rage as he would be DMN to let Eri become their puppet. Me too. Would protect Eri with my life. Mirio joined in as well with his own rage. Same here. Those Ephra will have broken bones before using this kid. Mirko said, cracking her knuckles. The others in the room had the same thought too but didn't say anything as it was shown on their faces. Eri couldn't help but feel a little better about having this many people protecting her, as she gave a tiny smile. Yeah, it seems that the Hero Commission is focused on one thing, keeping society clean, by any means possible, Midoriya said as he clenched his fist in rage before looking at Nizu. Nizu sir, if it is already with you, I would also like to not have a hero license. I'm a Gobuster now just like Ren and I have a license that would go against everything the Super Sentai stands for. Also, I don't want to be a part of a corrupt system that was responsible for making my auntie into a murderer. He said as he was seriously pissed off. Nizu just sighed at the two boys and knew they weren't going to take no for an answer. Very well. I'm pretty sure the public will accept the fact that you both trained at UA, and after hearing this we can't trust the Hero Public Safety Commission. He said to them. I still can't believe the system we work under is this dirty. Toshinori said out loud. To be fair, it's not as corrupted when the former president was in charge. Even the current HPSC president is still cleaning up after her predecessor messes. Zero said in their defense. But can she be trusted? Nick asked the god. No. Zero said, shaking his head. While Sayaka Grant isn't that bad of a person, you still shouldn't let your guard down around her. But the one you should watch out for is Jayuno Wada. He's just as corrupted as the former president of the HPSC. He warned them with Nizu's face cringing at the name alone. Indeed. Before coming here, the HPSC vice president suggested taking your technology. Which I strongly disagree too. Nizu said as he and that man had a long bad history with one another. He knew that Owada would do whatever it took to lock the Gobusters up for breaking the law. And he didn't want to think about what the Hero Safety Commission would do with Sentai technology in their hands. That's the rational chance to make. Aizawa said in agreement with a scowl. That man can't be trusted. But what do we do about it? Midnight asked and then looked at Nizu. Nothing, Nizu answered calmly. We can't do anything as we are right now, especially without any evidence of their crimes. Plus there's the All for One and Yakuza problem to deal with. Tsukachi reminded everyone. Don't forget, we still need to find a yellow buster. The Gobusters are still incomplete without at least 3 of its main members. Ren said as he wanted to get the team complete. Also, I have to find a successor to inherit One for All, Toshinori said to them. And let's not forget about proving Auntie Kana innocent, Midoriya added to the list of problems. Let's tackle one problem at a time. Once we get Amamiya and Midoriya everything they need to start up the Gobusters, we will do what we can to weed out the corruption in our society. Nizu took a long sip of his tea before putting it down. Is there something else you want to share with us, Mr. Zero? He asked the god. Yes, there is Nizu. Zero said before reaching into his robe to pull out a black flash drive with the Gobusters logo on it, then toss it over to Aizawa, who caught it easily. That flash drive contacts everything you need in order to create the new Gobusters, along with a few other things I add into there that will help you in the future. He said to them. Aizawa said looking at the flash drive in his hand before his gaze traveled back to the god. What's on it? That a surprise that you'll have to find out? Zero said with a small chuckle. Oh, I do love surprises, Nizu said with a sparkle in his eyes. There is one more thing, I would like to say and this one is for you, Aizawa. Zero said with a serious look. What is it? Aizawa asked as he listened to the god's words. There's something you should know. I'm only telling you this because you need to know the truth. Zero said stopping for a moment to take a deep breath before speaking again. Oboro Shirakumo is still alive. He dropped another bombshell on everyone. All at once, the mood took a nosedive as Aizawa's face turned pale with his eyes widening in shock, as the heroes in the room listening to this were stunned to learn about this. The Erasure hero quickly stood up, and looked wildly at the old man before marching over to him and grabbed the god by his robes. That's a lie. Oboro is dead. Aizawa yelled right into the man's face. If this is a joke, it's not funny. I'm sorry Aizawa, but it's the truth. That disaster that killed Shirakumo, was orchestrated by All for One and his underlings. After they capture him, All for One brainwashed him into his obedient servant and erased his memory of who he really is. Zero calmly revealed, which surprised everyone. All for One. Of course, it's always him. Toshinori shouted in anger as he took another life. But why though? Midnight was the one to ask as she was friends with Oboro. What would All for One want with a quirk like Cloud? That's the thing Nemuri. It wasn't Oboro's quirk they were after that day, it was Aizawa's. Zero said with Aizawa froze in place before letting go of the god's robes, as he processed this information along with everyone else. Then he turned around and stormed out of the living room and straight outside, slamming the front door behind him before they all heard his scream of despair and frustration, making some of them flinched. The heroes had never seen the normally stoic and unflappable Aizawa like this before and it worried them. Poor Eraser. He must be taking this harder than anyone else. Mandalay said, feeling sorry for her friend. Of course. He and Mike were the closest ones to him after all. Midnight said as she had her own frustration building up in her after learning the fate of her friend. I hate to ask, but who's Oboro? Tamaki asked as he could tell this was a bad subject to bring up. Oboro Shirakumo was once a student who attended UA with Aizawa and Namuri being his classmates and friends, Nizu said with a frown on his face. But there was a certain accident that took his life. We didn't know the cause of it until now, that is. He said, looking at the god. You said All for One was behind the incident to take Aizawa's quirk but failed in the end. But why wants Mr. Aizawa's power? Nijire asked the question. That man has always had an obsession with taking any quirk that catches his attention, Toshinori said, gritting his teeth in frustration. He probably figured he could beat any hero just by taking one look at them with Aizawa's power. That does sound like something he would do. Tsukachi said sadly. That monster. Ren said in rage as he wanted to stop this All for One for good. So where is Oboro right now? Pixie Bob asked the god as she wanted to help Oboro. He's with All for One, but he goes by a new name now and was given a new quirk. The Warp Gate villain, Kurojiri. His quirk is called Warp Gate Quirk, which grants him the ability to create and manipulate a dark fog from his head and hands. The fog acts as a portal to another location. Whenever he produces a mass of the dark fog, it transports anything it comes in contact with to a location of Kurojiri's choosing. His quirk is coordinate-based, so in order to use it, he needs to know the exact location where he is supposed to open the exit portal. He explains to them, making everyone just worry at the thought of that power. A warp quirk is very rare for a person to possess. Ragdoll said with concern. And it's being used by a villain no less, Tiger said with a frown. Which would be a pain in the butt, if he tries to make a break for it. Mirko said with irritation. How are we going to capture him if he decides to rap away? We'll have to take countermeasures in case we do run into him, Nizu said, already thinking of ways to deal with Kurojiri's rap gate. And, any case, thanks for telling us this, Zero. All the information you provided us will be helpful for us in the future. No problem, Nizu. I'm just doing my part to help Ren here. Zero said with a smile before they all heard the front door open. Aizawa stumbles back into the living room with a serious expression. Okay, I've decided, Aizawa said to them. I want the Gobusters in my class during their time at UA. Huh? Seriously? Midoriya shouted out in surprise. Honestly, at this point, it's the most rational thing to do. If you're going to face that monster, then I want you both to be ready for anything he throws your way. Aizawa leveled a glare at both the Gobusters. Just promise me that you'll put All for One down for good. Midoriya and Ren looked at each other for a moment before turning back to the man with a serious expression. We promise to shut down All for One, sir. They both said together. Good, that's all I'm asking for, Aizawa said before sitting back down. In the meantime, I'll figure out some ways to help Midoriya and Amamiya with their training since they have a year until the next entrance exam. His tone was casual, but it was almost monotone. Many of the heroes in the room looked at Aizawa with pure shock. Wait, you are going to train someone of your own free will? Who are you and where is the real Shoyuta? Midnight asked her longtime friend. Aizawa rarely trained anyone that wasn't required. He preferred to spend his time sleeping in his sleeping bag or being left alone to grade his work. This was completely out of character for him to want to take a potential student and train them for the exams. I have to agree with Midnight on this one. This was completely out of character for you. Mandalay said, raising an eyebrow at him. Eraserhead rolled his eyes at Midnight and Mandalay's jabs. I just watched two kids with no quirks take on a sludge villain that several pros couldn't take down, save the kid being held hostage, and defeat the villain with no training from the looks of Midoriya. Amamiya is a well-known vigilante who's been taking down criminals and saving people's lives without any hero training whatsoever. Now granted, they used their morphers and it gave them the ability to fight, but these two were fast and efficient in ending the situation. Aizawa said, crossing his arms. I want to train them both to find what they can do without using their morphin braces, since you know I fight quirkless and prefer close combat. He finished his reasoning. Tiger joined in on the conversation. Hey! If you're going to train them, we pussycats also want to help train these boys as well. We can differently make them go plus ultra in no time. He said he wanted to train the Gobusters. Not to mention we can teach them a lot about rescue operations since our team specializes in that area, Pixie Bob said, wanting to join in on the possibility of training Sentai boys. That, and she also wanted to make one of them their mate. It'll take some time to come train these kittens when our schedule allows for it, Ragdoll said with her usual smile. Mandalay smiled at her teammates agreeing to train the Gobusters. I still owe Ren for saving my family, so I would also like to help in their training for UA. She said, wanting to help. Midnight tapped her chin with a finger. Well, I guess I can take some time to teach them as well. Midnight had offered but received glares from Aizawa, Mandalay, Ragdoll, Pixie Bob, and Tiger that stopped her in her tracks. Hey, I may be a flirt, but I can teach both of them a few hero tricks and be professional at the same time. She said in her defense the R-rated heroine was serious about training in great heroes. I suppose I could help them out too if I have the time for it, Ryukyu said as she was interested in personal training the Sentai team herself. If anyone going to train these little shits, then it's going to be me. Mirko said aggressively, which made everyone gasp in unbelievable shock. Let me work with those two and no one will be able to stop them. She said with confidence. Rumi, are you serious right now? Ryukyu asked in complete disbelief, wondering if her friend was high on drags. Yes, is that a problem? Mirko said in a slightly hasty tone while glaring at her fellow heroes. You hate working with others, Pixie Bob said very bluntly. Even when you were working with us during the beginning of your hero career. Plus you've never done a single internship or work study before. Aizawa said, adding into the conversation. They managed to impress me. So what of it? I'm not going to let you all half-ass their training to become stronger. Rumi replied, her face giving nothing away. And besides, Ren still owes me a fight. She couldn't have been more tsundere if she tried. Everyone's jaws dropped from the rabbit heroine's behavior, as this was something they'd never seen her do before. It seems that the Super Sentai has changed the Mirko way of thinking about teamwork. Yes. I love you, Super Sentai. Ragdoll literally jumped cheering, before glomping Mirko in a hug. You managed to warm Rumi Black Heart. Ack. Get off you little dash, Mirko said in irritation while slightly blushing from embarrassment. Don't forget about me, fellow heroes. All Might said, bulking up in his muscle form to get their attention on him. I have already planned on training young Amamiya. So adding young Midoriya in on my all-American dream plan wouldn't be a problem for me. He said he wanted confidence before laughing. They are fighting over them, Mirio said in surprise as he didn't expect this outcome. I can see why. They made quite the impression. Amajiki said, nodding his head. I know, it's amazing. I hope they pick Ryukyu to work with because then we can work together. Nijire said as the big smile never left her face. She really wanted to know more about Midoriya. As the pro-heroes were trying to lay claim to who got to teach Ren and Midoriya what at UA, Inko was smiling that so many people were trying to train her son and his new friend. She was watching her son crying happy tears at the fact pro what to help him obtain his dreams. She was still scared for him but hoped that with training he would thrive as a hero and a Super Sentai. Are they fighting? Eri asked Inko as she didn't know how to feel about this. No sweetheart, they're just discussing how to help my son and your brother, Inko said softly to Eri who nodded back with her understanding now. Inko then watched as Nizu walked over to Izuku. Izuku, may I have a look at your analysis notes please? Nizu asked him politely. Midoriya was stunned for a moment at the request but handed the notebook over to him. Thank you. Nizu started to flip through it a page at a time. With each page his eyes grew bigger. Were you self-taught or did someone instruct you on how to be an analyst? He asked with great interest. Midoriya tilted his head to the side slightly with a confused look on his face. I taught myself by watching heroes on TV or any videos I could find online. I started out using a crayon when I was 4 years old, and as I grew up I started to go into more detail and taught myself how to draw to go next to my analysts. He said, rubbing the back of his head, slightly embarrassed about his notebook. I hope maybe one day of having it published and sent to UA to help other heroes understand their quirks. Midoriya was blushing as his dream of having his research published was a way to be a different kind of hero if he were turned away from UA. It's true, Inko said, beaming with motherly pride. Anytime a new hero came on TV, he went right into his notebook and would research them for hours. She told them as she recalled him sitting at the coffee table with a crayon and paper. Mom! Midoriya groaned as he tried to hide his face. He could hear some snickering from Ren. Yeah, I took a look into a few of his notebooks, and Izuku's skills at analyzing a person's quirk is off the costs, Ren said as he was impressed by his teammate's gift. Yeah. Zero nodded to him. He is good at observation and analysis, as well as adept at intuition and resourcefulness. He can formulate strategies that take advantage of the situation and use his knowledge to creatively utilize the quirks of other people to their full potential. The god said as they were shocked. Whoa, really? Gorosaki said in surprise and looked at the Midoriya with even more respect. That's really something. Is that true? Nijire's eye beamed with curiosity before quickly moving closer to Midoriya. Hey, Izuku. The female member of the Big Three called out. Can we see some of your notebooks? She asked, pointing to the rest of her friends. Okay. Midoriya said with a little nervousness, handing them some of his notebooks. Nijire, Mirio, and Tamaki were looking through the notebooks as their eyes widened in awe and interest. Wow! It's really well detailed and organized. Mirio said as he looked over Midoriya's notes with a grin. He has the stats on almost every hero in Japan. Even ones in other countries. Tamaki said quietly before flipping to another page. Nijire hummed to herself while looking at each of the pages and thought his drawings were very cute, before stopping a page with Ryukyu information. Hey Ryukyu, you got to see this. Midoriya wrote tons of amazing stuff about you and everyone else. The blue-haired girl called out to her mentor and the other pro-heroes, which got their attention. Really now? Ryukyu said, walking over to Nijire and grabbing the notebook, then read through it, which made her eyes widen. Incredible. He was able to get almost everything right about my quirk with 90% accuracy just by watching me in action. She said in an impressed tone. So he has notes on all of us? Ragdoll asked in curiosity while smiling. Before Midoriya could say anything, his mother spoke up again. Besides All Might, you and your team were one of his favorites to watch alongside Mirko and Ryukyu, Inko told them with a smirk. Is that so? Mirko said with a grin before picking up one of his notebooks along with the other pro-heroes. Holy hell, this kid is a genius. She yelled in awe. I can't believe I never thought about using my quirk like that. Midnight said in surprise while reading the information that Midoriya had on her and was beyond amazed at how he figured out her quirk. He even has ways to improve a person's quirk and their weaknesses. Tiger said with an impressed tone. Soon all the adults in the room stopped reading the notebooks and were looking at the blue buster in amazement. Nizu grinned madly as he looked at the Gobusters, and Aizawa was slightly concerned with the grin on his boss's face that normally meant more work for him in the process. Nizu rubbed his hands together with a large smile on his face. Well, that is settled then. I will set a schedule for you Gobusters to train with the wild pussycats, Ryukyu, Aizawa, Mirko, Midnight, and All Might at UA where we have the facilities to train you both, and one day a week I want to see you two for private tutoring with myself to improve Midoriya's already amazing analysis on quirks and also help Amamiya develop the same skill. This had several effects on the group. First Inko, Eri, the big three, Tsukachi, Nick, Usada, and Gorosaki were amazed that Nizu wanted to give Izuku and Ren private lessons and was willing to allow them access to UA facilities to train with multiple heroes before their entrance exam, as well as helping them create the new Gobusters. Second, the wild pussycats, Ryukyu, and Mirko were happy and a bit honored to train the new Sentai team into amazing, as they were looking forward to it. And lastly, All Might, Midnight, and Aizawa were terrified for a completely different reason. Their boss was incredibly intelligent and had never taken a private student to teach, and now he had found two. One was incredibly smart and had an analytical mind that was ready to be molded, and the other could inspire us to the point that they couldn't help but follow him to see his drive in action. They now feared the second coming of two Nizu in the future. Elsewhere, many of the UA staff members suddenly felt this fear and started to shudder, as they had a dreadful feeling that Nizu had done something to make their lives even more of a living nightmare for. This was what finally broke Midoriya. He was being offered training by multiple pros heroes, and being allowed to train at UA was one thing, but now he and his new friend were being offered to be private students by the president of UA personally was too much for him. Not to mention he was a part of the Super Sentai Legacy, the greatest team of heroes he had ever seen in his life. He started to cry hard and fell to his knees covering his face. After all the years of being mistreated by classmates and teachers, it was so surreal for him to see people wanting to help him. After 10 long years of mistreatment and abuse, there were finally other adults besides his mother who wanted to help him succeed. Izuku. Gorosaki panicked while rushing over to Midoriya. "What's the matter? Why are you crying?" he asked as his overprotective nature was taking over. The adults in the room were confused at his sudden breakdown. Inko was by his side in an instant and held him in a loving embrace, whispering soothing words into his ear, just before placing Eri down near Usada. Nijire looked to Midoriya, who had bright, slightly tearful eyes. She was surprised to see Midoriya whimpering, tears overflowing from his eyes that shone with nothing but pure pain and despair. She got down on her knee close to Inko and Gorosaki to comfort him, with the third-year girl rubbing his back gently. "Izuku? What's wrong?" Nijire asked in a very worried tone, as she didn't like seeing him like this. All the heroes, Tsukachi, Mirio, Tamaki, Ren, Usada, and Nick, this was a big red flag of him being abused and mistreated for a very long time. They knew it was not the mother as they saw him hold on to her like a lifeline. Eri was heartbroken to see Midoriya like this, move forward and grab the quirkless boy by his sleeve to help him out in her own way. Zero watched him as he broke down and knew why this happened, watching the moment silently as this was sad even for him to watch. When Midoriya finally settled down enough to speak, he kept apologizing to them. "Izuku, honey, what's going on, dear?" Inko asked, full of concern for her son. "Please, can you tell what brought on?" She had a solid grip on his son, keeping him close to her while running a hand through his hair. It took him a bit to finally find his voice. "If I tell you, then everyone will stop helping me," Midoriya said in a small voice. All of his courage from earlier was gone with this emotional breakdown. He had not told anyone about what had been happening to him. He had been trying to hold it all in and keep it bottled up. He knew that it wasn't healthy, but he didn't want people to pity him for it. He knew his mom was best friends with his Aunt Mitsuki and Uncle Masaru, but didn't want to ruin their long friendship. The room was silent except for the sound of sniffling and soft crying could be heard throughout the room. Izuku. Look at me please. Nijire's voice was right next to him, as he hesitated for a moment but turned his head towards her. Nijire surprisingly had a serious expression on her face and was looking him directly in the eyes. Please tell us what happened, I promise that none of us won't leave you. Her voice was soft and gave his hand a soft squeeze. Mirko, Tamaki, and Ryukyu were taken back in surprise by Nijire as this was out of character for the happy air-headed beauty, but they kept silent because of the situation at the moment. Promise? Midoriya asked almost in a whisper. Nijire nodded with a warm smile before hugging him, along with Inko. I promise Izuku, please tell us what caused you to cry when the others offered to help you. She gently rubbed in small circles into his back, before breaking the hug. I'll be here the whole time. She never looked away from him and gave him a kind smile. Please. Izuku. Gorosaki said gently, getting his attention. Please talk to us. We can't help you if you don't say anything. He really wanted to help his new panther get over his sadness. Midoriya looked at them before letting out a long ragged breath. Okay, but please wait until I finish to ask questions or interrupt me please, I may lose my confidence. He asked with everyone nodded. Then he began his story from the day he was told he was quirkless and was told to give up on his dream by the doctor, how his former friend Katsuki Bakugou aka Kaken became his main bully, and how he was treated by both students and staff. He was constantly used as a test dummy by Kaken explosions, or his little gang would beat him up to put a worthless Deku in his place. He was good at applying bandages to himself and had used his own pocket money to replace his uniform when he couldn't repair it. How when he reported it to the teachers or the staff they called him a liar and a troublemaker, making sure that Bakugou was left out of the report. He told them how he was graded differently from the other students and was always graded harsher to not make other students look bad, and that he was smarter than him. When he reached the story of yesterday, Bakugou told him to jump off a building hoping to get a quirk in his next life, which was the breaking point of the story. As he finished, he was emotionally and physically exhausted from unloading his burdens. Everyone had different reasons for the boy's heartbreaking story. Nijire and Inko were crying and both gave Midoriya a big hug. The wild pussycats, Aizawa, and Midnight wanted to go burn that school to the ground and round up the bullies, but they couldn't since they were heroes. Ren was quiet, but inside was a maelstrom of rage and fury. It took all he had not to take revenge for the young boy. Eri looked at Midoriya with tears streaming down her face, as she felt sorry for him with her older brother walking to the girl to comfort her. Nick and Yusada were comforting a sad Gorosaki, who overflowing with negative emotions over his partner's pain. All Might's BLD boiled as steam was coming off his muscle form and clenched his fist. Mirko and Tamaki were gritting their teeth at the suffering that Izuku had gone through. They both hated bullies, and it was surprising to see both of them angry. Ryukyu had a hand on Miruko's shoulder to keep her friend from demolishing a school in anger with her having a murderer expression. But she was also having a hard time keeping her anger in cheek, with a quirk slowly activating with scale appearing on her face. Nizu looked calm, but the sound of his knuckles could be heard, cracking violently. But most of all, everyone was pissed off at a certain blonde-haired bully and wanted to beat the ever-living CRP out of his racist butt. Mizudafu Hospital, afternoon. Elsewhere in a hospital room, Bakugou was lying in his hospital bed when he felt a cold shiver run down his spine, as he felt his very well-being in jeopardy. Right next to his bedside were his two parents, who paid him a visit to see if he was okay after he was attacked by a villain. He is a middle-aged man of average height and build who has short brown hair similar in style to his wife and son, a short mustache, and rectangular glasses. His name is Masaru Bakugou. She is a woman with spiky ash blonde hair and red eyes, the same aforementioned traits that her son Katsuki inherited. Due to her quirk, she maintains a youthful appearance despite being in her late 30s. Her name is Mitsuki Bakugou. Then Masaru notices the pale expression on his son's face before speaking to him. Katsuki, are you alright? You look pale. Masaru asked his son in concern. I'm fine, so shut it already. Bakugou snapped at his old man, shaking away the feeling. Then he felt a hand slapping him in the back of his skull. Ah! Old Hag. What was that for? He yelled at his mother with a scowl. Don't shout at him like that, you stupid brat. He's just worried about you. Mitsuki shouted at her son in fury. I don't need him to worry about me, you old bee. Bakugou shouted at her. Say that again, brat, and see what happens. Mitsuki challenged him. Midoriya resident, afternoon. You see this right here? This is exactly what I've been talking about. Ren set out in rage, breaking the silence. This world is so messed up. The weak are left to fight for themselves, while people like this Katsuki Bakugou get to do whatever the hell they want, just because they have a flashy powerful quirk. He couldn't accept the fact that someone like that wanted to be a hero. And those in power don't seem to do anything about it. Nick said with his own anger. Oh, God. How can someone like Izuku have such a terrible life? Gorosaki said as he didn't understand how someone so innocent could have such a horrible life. To think someone like this Katsuki Bakugou wants to be a hero. All Might said to this boy. I've seen his type before, Aizawa said, gritting his teeth in fury. People who have oversized egos just because they have power. Wonder if that punk butt explosions are stronger than my kicks when I put my foot in his butt. Mirko muttered to himself. One can go to prison for instigating suicide. Nizu stated seriously with a hint of anger in his tone. It took a minute or two for Midoriya to regain his composure while Nijire and Inko held him tightly in their arms. Once he did, though, the conversation turned back to the original subject, thanks to Usada. Seriously, what's this Bakugou kid's beef with you that's going that far? Usada asked as he was heated by this Bakugou brat. Well, he's planning to go to the local hero school, like UA. Midoriya replied to the question. And, he wasn't too happy to find out I'd been thinking about going myself. Said I have no business becoming a dash. Wait, what? Tiger cut him off, looking incredulous. He's in no position of authority over you, so who in the hell is he to decide if you should be allowed to try and become a hero? He sputtered. And I thought Endeavor was full of himself. Ryukyu commented in irritation. He wasn't always like that. Midoriya said, trying to defend what little shred of his old friend possibly remained in the boy. What happened that caused him to start behaving like a, Nijire tried to think of the right word. A complete prick? Nick offered. And but? Ren added in. A douchebag? Pixie Bob said bluntly. A total dillweed? Mirio said to her. Exactly. Nijire said with an angry cute pout. Midoriya sighed before saying. It sort of started when it came out that I'm quirkless. Since others cheered him for having a strong one, he decided I was hindering him on what he thought was his path to being the greatest hero. Things got worse after I tried to help him once, and his pride didn't take it well. He said only to make the people in the room even more angry at Bakugou. Izuku, I do not know how to phrase this gently, but this Bakugou is no friend of yours, Ren said in a serious but angry voice which made Midoriya flinch a bit. I know we're not friends anymore, but. Midoriya tried to defend his former friend until Ren simply raised a hand at him to stop. Don't bother trying to defend something that isn't worth defending. Ren's remark made Midoriya's eyes grow wide. It would simply be useless to do so. This is about what you want to do with your life. Don't ever let people like Bakugou instill fear in you, no matter who they are. Run. Midoriya trailed off. He's right, Izuku. Ryukyu said next as he looked at her. This bakugou made it very clear that he doesn't care about you in the slightest, to the point he even suicide baited you, just for wanting to be a hero without a quirk. She said with anger in her tone. Agreed, you're obviously way better off without having a toxic element like him in your life. You should just forget he ever existed and focus on the people who truly care about you. Midnight gently said to the boy with a sad look in her eyes. Midoriya was quiet for a moment as he was thinking about what they said to him about cutting bakugou out of his life for good. Midoriya. Have you ever thought about it cementing suicide? Tsukachi asked cautiously while getting his attention. Remember, I have a lie-detecting quirk. He said, expression solemn. Midoriya let out a small laugh. Everyone looked at him in surprise, even Inko. No. I have not. Never. Midoriya said, his eyes glistening. I wouldn't leave my mother alone. My father is gone now and I'm the only family my mom has left. If I jumped off the roof, she'd be devastated and all alone. I can't do that to her. He confirmed with a small smile. Everyone sighed in relief, with Inko cried softly. Tsukachi gave a smile as his quirk wasn't active. I'm glad you didn't go through with it, young man. He said, only stopping when he saw the expression on Nizu's face. Nizu was smiling just as he normally did, but it had something twisted lying underneath. Ah, I see. He said, sipping his tea. Well, I sure hope they've got themselves some good lawyers. Midoriya froze. What? He said in confusion. I think I know where this is going, Ren said with a grin. Nizu simply grinned. What was your old school's name again? He asked. Aldera Middle School. Midoriya said with a gulp. Wonderful. The bear mouse creature clapped his paws together after setting his tea in his lap. Tsukachi. I believe you'd be able to collect evidence for our case. He said to the detective. Tsukachi paused for a moment, looking a bit nervous, but nodded. Yes. Of course. He said, knowing where this was going. All right then, Nizu smiled, tail twitching. As long as you provide your statement, and if Tsukachi and I can collect a good amount of evidence, I'm sure we'll be able to bring Aldera and his past schools down soon. He mentioned. When we're done here. Midoriya blinked. What? What just happened? He asked in confusion. Midnight shuddered. We call it the power of the principle. She said in fear. When Nizu is dead set on something, Tiger said, nodding solemnly. He'll never let it go. Aizawa shrugged. Not that they deserve mercy. Not that he feels sorry for them after what they did to the kid. Midoriya gulped. I see. He replied. If Aldera Middle School was guilty of quirk discrimination, child neglect, and abuse, it wouldn't survive the next few weeks. And Nedzu would thoroughly enjoy setting them on fire and watching them burn. Now then. Nizu said cheerfully, dropping his deadly aura and allowing everyone to let out a breath they hadn't known they were holding. Miss Midoriya, if you are okay with it, I want to take Izuku on as my student starting on Monday. I will take care of his complete education starting Monday until he starts classes at UA. It will also allow me to have him on a training schedule and allow for Miss Usajiyama to become a part-time instructor and be able to help train him in her free time, along with Ren. Would that be acceptable to you? Nizu stood tall and held his hand behind his back. Inko nodded after drying her tears. That would be acceptable, Principal Nizu. I will withdraw him from that place first thing in the morning tomorrow. She was feeling a multitude of emotions, from anger at Katsuki, to being upset with Mitsuki, to being devastated that Izuku putting her friendship above his welfare. Also, if possible, I would like some sort of restraining order against Katsuki. After what he's been doing to my son for years, I would rather he not be allowed near Izuku. At the very least until Katsuki can rein in his anger and unwarranted hatred towards my son. Inko suggested, which surprised her son. That can easily be arranged. Katsuki Bakugou will not be allowed within 5 meters of your son without a pro-hero or his parents present until he learns to control his anger, and we can get to the bottom of his aggression towards your son and fix it. Nizu stated without batting an eye at the request. We'll be putting your son into therapy as soon as possible since his years of bullying and poor treatment from his past schools. Therapy? Don't you think that's a bit too? Midoriya was cut off by someone. Midoriya. Nizu interrupted Midoriya with a firm tone. You are a victim and have shown signs of abuse for no reason other than being quirkless. And that is unacceptable in my opinion. He softly said to him, but there was a hint of anger in there. Nizu is angry, Aizawa said, looking at his boss. He is distracting himself by offering to take over for Midoriya's lessons. You are correct, Nizu said, narrowing as he heard Aizawa comment. I heard all I needed to destroy them earlier, but now I want to annihilate them completely. As well as make young Katsuki Bakugou regret his life choices and show him that the entire world doesn't revolve around him. I'd like to help, Tiger said, seething. Same here, Ragdoll said in a rare tone of anger. Count me in on this, Mirko said, gritting her teeth. I'll personally show that little bstrd that he isn't SHT. I shall assist as well, Ryukyu said quietly as her eyes were narrowed slits. Yes, we're going burn that school. All Might said in rage as he wanted to smash that school to the ground. I believe this will help out your investigation into Aldera Middle School. Zero said before snapping his fingers, and then a green flash drive appeared in Tsukachi's right hand. What is this, Mr. Zero? Tsukachi looked at the flash drive in interest. Video evidence of all of Katsuki Bakugou's crimes, along with a few other of Aldera Middle School's dirty little secrets. Zero said with a sly grin. Oh really now, Nizu said, giving an evil grin. We will be sure to look over it very closely. He rubbed his paws like a supervillain in a shitty action movie and cackled into this cup of now cold tea, the sound sending a shiver down the hero's spine. Also Nizu, if you would allow me, I have a few suggestions on how you should punish Katsuki Bakugou. Zero said to the intelligent animal. Because normal means of punishment won't work on him. Like what Izuku said in his story, Katsuki Bakugou has never had to face the consequences of his actions. Never been told that his actions towards Midoriya nor his thoughts about the quirkless or weak were wrong. Not by the teachers or the other students. So, I believe he would have seen it as an attack on his person rather than as a consequence for his actions. Zero explained. Nizu's neutral face remained calmly contemplative, but Zero could see in his eyes that his logic piqued his interest. During his time in both elementary and middle school, no teacher or other person of authority has ever told Bakugou no. All he's ever received was encouragement and praise. Both for his aspirations to be a hero as well as his treatment of those he determined beneath him. There's no argument that he has committed a lot of sins in his short life, but the blame for his actions is not solely on Bakugou. Zero said that made many in the room angry as he was defending Bakugou. Nizu, on instinct, raised a subduing paw to silence a predictable incredulous many people in the room from snapping at the god. He wanted to hear the god out first before casting his opinion. Would you please explain your reasoning for that? Nizu asked as he lowered his paw. If you think about it and remember Izuku's story, his actions are not entirely his fault, but rather due to past teachers' misguided inaction. Zero said, earning a quirked brow from the adults in surprise. By letting him do whatever he wanted, they taught him and encouraged the idea that he was the best. That he was right to think of Izuku and everyone else as less than him. Never teaching him that what he was doing was wrong. That his actions were not the ones of a hero. He finished his thoughts on the matter. Is that so? Then how we should handle Katsuki Bakugou's punishment and show him the error of his ways. The UA principal prodded with a nod as he was interested in hearing this. There are two things in the world that matter the most to Katsuki Bakugou. The god held up his fingers one at a time. He listed power and being a hero. Zero let his arm drop back as he grinned. Take those two things away, even temporarily, and even someone as stubborn as him will hopefully think twice before behaving the same way again. The power part is easy, just get the kid to wear a pair of quirk-canceling cuffs as long as he's at school to make him feel how it's like being quirkless. On second thought, you may want to require them outside of school too, just to make sure he doesn't get all pissed off and attack Izuku or anyone else on the weekend or anything. He said his ideas. Not a bad idea. Tsukachi considered while rubbing his chin. But there is one major problem. That technology doesn't exist. He sadly said. That would be a problem, detective, because it does now. Zero said to him as everyone looked confused at what he said. Ah. I get it. Nick exclaimed with some excitement, getting everyone's attention. The flash drive you gave Aizawa has the information we need to make those quirk-canceling cuffs. He said, making everyone realize it too. Exactly. Zero said happily while clapping his hands. That flash drive not only contacts information on how to create the Gobusters, but also other useful things you're going to need in the future. Interesting. Nizu sipped his tea, already contemplating the possible ramifications and uses of such a technology. It'll have to be well protected and kept hidden. It may be able to help better protect the school against future threats. I'll have to take a look at that flash drive later. He thought. Mirio spoke up then, bringing the conversation back into focus. That's all well and good. But wouldn't Bakugou wearing them outside of school may still be an issue? He pointed out. That's a good question to ask. The general public might end up mistaking him for an escaped villain or criminal if they see him wearing HNDCFFS. There's the danger of an actual villain noticing him having a powerful quirk enough to warrant being restrained. It could make him a target for an attack or kidnapping. Tamaki said to everyone as he made a good argument to the problem. All valid concerns, Zero declared before smiling again. But ones that are easy to work around. As long as the cuffs function to cancel his quirk, there's no reason they have to look like traditional cuffs. Standard cuffs are a few centimeters thicker, travel further up the arm, and are typically linked by a bar to keep the hands restrained. Since your goal isn't to restrain him but instead solely to cancel his quirk, they don't need to be that bulky and obvious. Not to mention I'm pretty sure Power Loader, or even the famous inventor David Shield, could find a way to disguise them. Make them look like vambraces or cover them in a durable fabric so they look like sweatbands, do whatever as long as they look more like a fashion choice to anyone outside the know rather than the cuffs they actually are. He suggested to the people in the room. All Might lifted his hand to the chin and thought as the others in the room looked at him. It should be doable. We'll need to secure a proper pair of cuffs from the police and modify them to speed up the process. It'd take a few days, but I'm sure I could streamline them down. Zero nodded her head eagerly in response. Disguising them shouldn't be too difficult either. Knowing David, he could have it done within less than a week. He said with pride as he was confident in his best friend's ability. Nedzu's grin widened. Then we'll be sure to make a call to Mrs. Shield as soon as possible and ask him to make the special cuffs for us. But back to the Bakugou problem. We'll make him wear the cuffs in and out of school for an extended PRD of time. As for how long, I think it should be determined by his progress and when he can be trusted to not trigger his quirk in response to just anything that annoys him. Midnight suggests to them. It's fine with me. We'll send him to Hound Dog for anger management classes, along with him retaking quirk counseling. Nizu agreed, causing people to nod in response. That takes care of his power obsession, but we still need a way to temporarily remove his ability to be a hero. Ideas? Mandalay asked the rest of the room. It might be best for us to stop here and decide more about this at a later date. Ryukyu said, rubbing her head from the long conversation. Agreed, we can talk more about Katsuki Bakugou's punishment later, Tsukachi said as he was going to start his investigation into this serious matter. Then with that said and done, I'll be taking my leave for now. I'll see you all again when the yellow buster appears. Zero said to them as he was about to leave. Again Zero, thanks for everything you did for us again. The information you told us will benefit us in the future. All Might said to the god with his usual smile. Zero just smiled at him and gave them a nod as faded from their sight, which left the room silent for a moment. There he goes, Yusada said as the god returned back to his realm. Yes, and we couldn't let the information he gave us go to waste, Tsukachi said out loud. We have much to do in just a short time. Everyone agreed to that statement, as there was much to do and it wasn't going to be easy, but it had to be done for the future of their world. Izuku, promise me you won't try and bottle this up again and let me know if something or someone is bothering you, Inko said to her son, which made Midoriya's eyes go to the floor, and mumbled something she couldn't quite make out. What did you say, dear? Everyone in the room gave their full attention as they waited to hear what Midoriya had mumbled. Midoriya nervously swallowed. I said I didn't want to be a burden on you any more than I already am. Midoriya's eyes remained on the floor. I know you have to work twice as hard for me to go to school and take care of everything when you get home. I overheard how they passed your promotion because they found out I was quirkless. I didn't want ... He was cut off mid-steam of his rambling when his mother gently moved his face to face her. Many of the occupants in the room gave him a sad smile. Izuku, I am your mother. It is my job to worry and take care of you. Since your father died, you became my whole world and my purpose in life. I have had the privilege of watching you grow and become the amazing man I see here today. I wasn't going to get that job regardless of what you heard, and I don't care about it since I get to come home to see you. Inko gently wiped a tear away from his eyes with her thumbs. So please don't hide stuff like this from me and I will always stand behind my little hero, understand? Her baby boy nodded, unable to find his voice. Now this is all in the past. You have a fresh start from this point on, my future hero and Super Sentai. She said to him. Midoriya gave her a million-watt smile. I can do that, Mom, and thank you for everything. He hugged her tightly. This got many in the room sniffling at the touching scene in front of them. Nijire, Ragdoll, and Pixie Bob were sobbing at the adorable sight. Several of the males in the room got out their phones and sent a message to their mothers to tell them that they loved them. Midnight and Mandalay were dabbing their eyes with a handkerchief. Mirko rubbed her nose and looked away. Ryukyu smiled at her friend but did not say anything. Midoriya looked back at the others that were here to help him. Now, where do we go from here? He asked them. Ren walked up to him before placing Eri back down. Now we train, and have Nizu and the others take care of the other problems for us until we're ready. He said, placing a hand on his friend's shoulder. It's time to be a real Super Sentai team and change this world for the better. He said, making Midoriya smile back at his teammate. Eri nodded with a bright smile as she was happy for Midoriya and her brother, then grabbed onto Midoriya's leg for a hug. And we'll be here to support you all the way. Gorisaki joined in, walking next to them, along with Nick and Yusada. Right. We buddy-roid stick with our partners no matter what. Nick said, giving a thumbs up to them. Yeah, so let's hurry up and find my partner soon to complete the team. Yusada said, making them laugh a little. Don't forget about us. Two round objects hit the back of Midoriya's head as a pair of hands wrapped around his neck. His blush came in full force upon hearing giggling as he immediately could tell it was Nijire. We're also going to train you Gobusters. Nijire said in her cheerful tone. And Nijire. Midoriya had managed to get free from and turn his head. The blue buster blush only grew upon seeing the blue-haired girl's costume and large chest, as he tried to repress it. You and Ren can work under Ryukyu with me. Then you both can train with me, Mirko, and Amajiki. Nijire begins to blab again while keeping her large smile on the entire time, hoping to spend more time with him. Yeah, I would love to have a few sparring matches with them to see what they're made of. Mirko said they liked the idea of training with the Gobusters. Ack. Tamaki hit himself in his hands. I don't think I'd handle a fight against a Sentai. He said in a bum tone. Don't be like that. Nijire rolled her eyes, punching the boy playfully. You're strong. You would have done fine. Don't expect us to take it easy on you too, Mirko said with a battle-hungry grin. We're going to beat you down until you're about to take on anything this world throws your way. Indeed, Gobusters. All Might said with a smile while his fists were on heaps. Get ready for some hellish training unlike anything you ever experienced before. He laughed out loud while looking forward to their training. Aizawa cleared his voice and walked closer to the Gobusters. They're right. We have a year to prepare you both for the entrance exam. I will say this: we will train you properly, so welcome to your new boot camp. He gave the boys a small smile at the Gobusters, making the boys wonder what he had just agreed to, but was also looking forward to it. Yes sir. The two Gobusters shouted with excitement. Before anything else was said in the room, Tsukachi's phone suddenly was ringing in his pocket with everyone's attention on him now. Excuse me everyone, but I need to take this. Tsukachi apologizes before pulling out his phone and answering it. Hello, this is Detective Tsuka Naomasa. Tsukachi immediately pulled his phone away from his ear at the loud female voice, as everyone in the room could hear the loud voice even though the speaker wasn't on. Finally you picked up. I've been trying to get a hold of you forever. The female voice shouted in a panicked tone. Makoto? Tsukachi yelled as it was his younger sister on the line. What's the matter? You sound like you're in trouble. He asked as he and everyone else could hear the panic in her voice. My well-being doesn't matter at the moment. Are you by any chance near a TV right now? Makoto asked her older brother. Yes. Why do you dash? Tsukachi didn't finish his sentence as his sister interpreted him. Then turn it on for God's sake. You need to see this. It's on every channel. Makoto yelled out loud, as the way that she spoke sounded like there was a crisis going on outside, which made them worry. Upon hear this, Ren immediately grabbed the TV remote on the living room table to turn on the television screen. What they saw made every person in the room gasp in utter shock, fear, and surprise at what they were witnessing before them. All of Mizutofu City was in a state of panic, with people screaming and running for their lives as the collateral damage was at an all-time high, with a large army of individuals that looked the same destroying the city and attacking anyone or anything in their path of destruction and chaos. Everyone's eyes widened in great utter fear as they recognized the enemy on the television screen and thought that this wasn't possible. The Vagas? Ran, Midoriya, Nick, Gorosaki, and Usada all shouted together simultaneously in great shock as they didn't expect to see the Vagas in this world. Midoriya Resident, afternoon. In the Midoriya residence, everyone watched in horror as the news report unfurled before them. A helicopter flew high above Mizutofu City as dozens of buglars rampaged down below, destroying everything in their terrible wake. Buildings were knocked down or on fire, vehicles were completely demolished, and people were being killed left and right with the pro-heroes unable to stop this nightmare. It's gotten so bad that the Japanese military was called into action to end this crisis. Despite that, it didn't do much help but get more innocent people killed as this world's military was no match for the Vagas' advanced technology. No. This can't be happening right now. Ren yelled in horror with a complete look of disbelief on his face. What are the Vagas doing here? This can't be possible. We defeated the Vagas years ago. Gorosaki shouted with his hands over his head, as he was freaking out over the situation. But yet, it's happening right in front of our very eyes. Toshinori said as he didn't felt this scared in a long time. This is truly horrible. The symbol of peace wasn't the only one who was feeling scared, as the other heroes, adults, and kids were showing different reactions on how they were handling this matter of Sentai enemies invading their world. There's no use trying to deny it. Nizu said seriously with a worrisome look on his face. The Vagas are back, and they're invading our world. But why? What is their reason for launching such a large-scale attack on the city? The Vagas only ever attack, unless... Ren said in a thinking pose before coming to a realization with his eyes slightly widening. They're after Enetron. He stated, making everyone in the room look his way. What's Enetron? Ragdoll asked them. Enetron is a viable energy source that is so clean and pure, it can replace fossil fuels, electricity, and nuclear energy, that can power domestic houses and appliances or even whole cities. Nick explained before someone else took over. The Vagas collect a certain amount of Enetron and uses it to transport themselves or other things they want from hyperspace into the real world, as well as create their metalloids. Gorosaki said with Usada going next. The Gobusters also uses Enetron for powering up their arsenal, as a main of defensive and offensive. Usada finished explaining to everyone, which made them look impressed by the information. So their reason for attacking the city is to steal some Enetron, and use it to transport their forces into our world. Aizawa said with a deep scowl over the fact. But, I thought Enetron only existed in the Sentai world. Midoriya said in confusion and curiosity. Actually there is Enetron in this world. Usada said, getting everyone in the room's attention. In fact, there are a lot of it located all over Japan. Wait, seriously? Tsukachi said with a dumbfounded expression. Since when? Since the appears of quirks. Usada said, making every person's eyes widen in surprise at what he said to them. It's just that the people in this world just didn't discover it yet. And how do you know this? Tiger asked the buddy Royd. Zero told me, Rabbit. Usada said bluntly. Of course, he told you. Ren muttered to himself quietly, before looking at the heroes who were still staring at the TV screen. Hey! So what the hell are people waiting for? He said, breaking the heroes out of their silence as they looked at him. The whole city in a state of anarchy. We need to get moving before it's too late. He reminded them about the crisis. He's right. All Might said, bulking up into his muscle form. We need to hurry before the Vagas destroys more lives. He stated seriously before rushing out of the apartment at high speed, which made the pro look like a blur. Hearing this make all the pro heroes swing into action and followed suit, as some of them already rushed ahead to get into the city faster. Finally, some action. Mirko shouted with a battle-hunger grin before running outside and leaping to the city, as quickly as she could, and was looking forward to facing some Sentai enemies. They're not a moment to waste then. Nijire-chan, you're with me. Ryukyu said to her in turn as she ran out of the apartment before transforming into a dragon and taking to the sky. Right, Ryukyu. Nijire replied with a rare serious expression, as she followed after her mentor with her quirk. There have to be tons of property damage and lots of people need saving. We should focus on rescue and evaluating the civilians, while the others deal with the Vagas threat. Mandalay said to her teammates. Right. The other pussycats agreed before leaving as well. I'll accompany you. Nizu said, jumping onto Tiger's shoulder and sitting there. I'm still a pro hero as well and sometimes tells me you're going to next my assignments. We appreciate the help, Nizu. Pixie Bob said to him. We'll join them in the rescue operation, Aizawa. Our quirks ain't suitable for dealing with machines. Midnight said to the man, who was applying eye drops to his eyes. Right. That sounds like the most rational thing we can do. Aizawa said to her as he puts on his goggles before the two followed after the pussycats and their boss to rescue civilians. I need to get moving as well. Tsukachi said before leaving for his car to the station. We should go to Sun Eater. Mirko said to his friend with a passionate gaze. We can't let the Vagas hurt even more innocent people. Tamaki nodded back to him in response with him having a ton of anxiety in his stomach, as the boy really didn't want to face Sentai enemies but no he couldn't back down with so many lives on the line and that his friends were putting their lives at risk to help others. Then the two boys departed from the apartment together to deal with the threat to the city. Midoriya, we're going as well. Ren said to his partner with serious expression. We're the ones who can stop the Vagas rampage. Yeah, let's go. Midoriya replied back with his own serious gaze. Izuku. Inko shouted to her son in a motherly tone, while walking up to him. You're seriously going out there in all that madness to fight against those monsters? She asked as her son was about to rush out into danger again. I have to, Mom. Midoriya said back to her with a look of confidence on his face, unlike anything his mother has ever seen on him before. It's my duty now, as a Super Sentai, to protect the Earth from anything that threatened it. So sorry Mom, but I can't back down from this, even if you're against it. He said to her. Inko could tell that no matter what she said to her son, it wasn't going to stop him from helping others in danger no matter the cost. So the green-haired mother just lets out a light sigh before giving her son a small smile. Just don't get hurt, okay? Inko said full of concern. Midoriya smiles knowing he has the best mom in the world. I won't. Midoriya said confidently but then thought about it. Probably. Ren watched all this with a smile before walking up next to them. I will make sure to bring him back safely, you have my word. He promised the woman, as Inko then walked over and hugged her son, who returned the favor. Please be careful, Izuku, I can't lose you too. Inko said to him before pulling back with a smile and looking at Ren. Thank you for looking after my baby boy. It's not a problem at all. Ren said with a nod and smile before he felt a tug on his pants legs and looks down to see Eri, with a scared look on her face. Eri, what's wrong? He asked before kneeling down to her level. Are you going to be okay fighting all those monsters? Eri asked in a sacred tone, as she remembered all the Sentai history and how scary the monsters they face are. I don't want to lose you too, Ren Oniai-chan. Don't leave me. She said close to tears. But Ren placed a hand on his little sister and gave Eri a smile to tell her that everything would be okay. Hey, don't worry Eri. I don't plan on going anywhere and leaving you behind, but I need to go and stop the Vagas before it's too late. Ren said while rubbing her back soothingly. So I need for you to be a brave girl and wait for us to return, okay? You think you can do that for me? He asked, whipping the build-up tears in her eyes. Yes. Eri said, scoffing up a bit with a tiny smile, then embraced him in a hug. Please come back home. She asked, with Ren wrapping his arms around her body. I will. Ren said before letting go of her before standing back up and looking at Inko. Please watch over her for me, Inko. She'll be in good hands here. Inko said with a smile. So do your best out there, the both of you. Good luck. Eri said to them. We will. Ren said with a nod before looking at the three. Nick, you're coming with us to drive us through the city, while Gorosaki and Yusada will stay here and hold down the fort. He said to them. Okay. Nick said, snapping his fingers. Got it, Rabbit. Yusada said in agreement. Good luck, you too. And if you need us, we'll be ready to help. Gorosaki said to them with encouragement. Right. Midoriya replied with a nod. Come on, Ren and Nick. Everyone else is already ahead of us. He said to them. Yeah, let's move out and kick some Vagas butt. Ren said with a serious response. Now Ren, Midoriya, and Nick ran out of the apartment together to join in the battle to stop the Vagas and defend the city from being destroyed. League of Villains Hideout, afternoon. Ha 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 ha. Tomura was sitting there laughing like a madman, as the villains watched images of the Vagas attack on Mizutofu. Are you seeing this, Kurojiri? Look at the heroes running around like headless chickens, getting killed by this group of new players. He said gleefully with an psychotic expression, loving every second of this chaos. Yes, this is indeed impressive to say the less. Kurojiri said, not having the same enthusiasm as Turma, but couldn't deny that even interest to see a group of individuals giving the heroes so much trouble. I never imagined that a group of villains were capable of launching an attack like this, and on such a scale as well. Indeed, Kurojiri. This is truly a wonderful sight to witness. A chilling voice on a TV monitor as he was talking through it from another location. Never before in my life have I ever seen such a whole originated attack on the heroes. He said with an interest in his voice. MSTR. Turma said, looking at the TV screen. Tell me, do you know who's responsible for causing all of this? Because I really want to meet the mastermind who created such an awesome game stage. He said, talking in gamer logic. To be honest, Turma, even I'm in the dark about this new group of criminals. The voice confessed with curiosity. But whoever this unknown group is, they could be useful assets for us in the future. But for now, let's continue to observe the situation unfolded a bit more before making a decision on what to next. He said to his student as they returned to watch Destination on the news. Yes, MSTR. Turma said, looking back Carnage on the screen, as grinned with joy. Mizutofu City, afternoon. Back in the Mizutofu, the Vagas buglars poured into the city, slaughtering everything in their path. While many heroes, police officers, and the military present were trying to put up a fight, but in the end, they were all overrun and killed or defeated by the swarm buglars. Their broken and bloodied corpses or unconscious bodies were now at the mercy to killer robots. Get out of my way! Mount Lady shouted while currently the size of a building, as she flat out kicked a bunch of buglars into the air as they crashed into some nearby buildings. Seeing some of the Vagas grunts on the ground, the giant woman took this chance to stomp the monstrous creatures into mush repeatedly. She wasn't the only one here, as many other pro-heroes including some of the top heroes were also present as they tried their best to fend off the enemies all around them as they tried to get themselves along with innocent people to safety. However, it was hard to do that, as while the Vagas keep getting back up like it was nothing without so much as a scratch, no matter how many times the heroes attack them. What the hell? Mount Lady shouted in frustration at how her attacks weren't working on them. Why won't they just stay down already? There's so many of them. A random male hero shouted as he slammed a buglar into the ground before firing a plasma beam quirk at another one away as it tried to jump on him. Nothing we do seems to work on them. A muscular build hero shouted as his and the other heroes' quirks ain't working on the villains. He is a wide-set man of a muscular build with long, pale mint green hair that spikes backwards, away from his head. His hero costume is a white mask with 4 holes in a square formation, all resembling gun muzzles with slight barrel stems protruding from their side, the only exception being the bottom left one, which instead just holds the appearance of a regular circle. He wears a partial bodysuit of a dark grayish cyan color, only covering the lower portion of his torso, his arms from the shoulders down, and the palms of his hands. A padded combat vest sits over this, around the sides of his chest, and is kept in place by 2 straps that connect his mask and shoulders. He also sports plain brown pants and short black boots, as well as his signature revolver chamber-shaped silver bracers and spikes on his knuckles. His name is the battle hero, Gunhead. Yeah, and our bullets are just bouncing off their bodies. A cop armed in SWAT gear shouted in frustration, as he and the other officers are fighting alongside the heroes. Keep it up. We can't let the civilians with us be harmed. Edge Shot exclaimed from his spot close by as he used his quirk to pierce through a bugler's body but was unable to do so. These things are a lot tougher than they look. As they continued to fight off the hordes of Vagas, a few of the buglar began to fire some missiles at the humans, with them slamming into the ground not too far from where the heroes, police officers, and surviving civilians were located at, and causing multiple explosions that cover a wide area as the people caught in the screamed out loudly. The flames and smoke that formed from the collision soon faded away to reveal the aftermath of the blasts, as the heroes and police officers started to recover from the attack. What on earth? A green-haired hero woman muttered with slight confusion yet worry, before the pupils in her eyes dilate to see the devastation that had taken place in front of her and the others. Piles of bloodily burnt body parts that belonged to some of the heroes, police officers, and surviving civilians have scattered the broken road, with the buglar coming out of the blast unscathed. The moment they saw these, they all had looks of horror on their faces, with some unable to bear the carnage and began to look away or throw up, as many of the people were enraged. "No!" A random cop shouted in horror and anger, before opening fire his assault rifle at the monstrous robots in hopes of killing them. Soon the other SWAT teams and soldiers followed suit, as they started raining bullets at the Vagas, with the heroes were also enraged by this and began to attack the buglars. Unfortunately for them, the large number of buglars were unaffected by the heroes and officers' attempts to stop them, as foot soldiers soon overpowered every single one of them in a matter of seconds. "Get off of me, you little Mount Lady!" shouted, while a bunch of buglars was climbing up her giant body and making the heroine collapse onto a nearby building, destroying it and changing her back to human size. "There's no end to them!" Gunhead shouted while holding a badly hurt hero in his arms. "We need reinforcements or else we're dead," a hero with spiky red hair said as he was holding back two buglars. He is a sturdy man with spiky, red hair jutting forwards in one place and backward in two. He wears a metal, three-piece mask over his mouth and nose, and a crimson outfit with a long, red cape, the collar very high and wide and the edges ripped. His name is the chivalrous hero, Crimson Riot. "Damn it!" The captain of the SWAT team shouted in frustration and fear while hitting an enemy with his baton. "These can't be how it ends for us." He thought all hope was lost. That is until the sound of a loud engine was heard from the distance, which got everyone's attention as the fighting paused for a brief moment. "Huh!" Edgeshot set out in confusion at the noise. The noise was getting louder and closer, when multiple blasts of laser fire struck down a couple of them in an instant, as two people riding on a red motorcycle stopped in the middle of the street, with everyone gasping to see who it is. "No way!" Gunhead shouted in surprise. "It's them! They're here!" A soldier from the self-defense force yelled out loud while pointing at the two Sentai, with everyone else shocked to see them here. "It's the Gobusters! The stars of the show are finally here!" Nick said as Ren and Midoriya got off the motorcycle to fight. "We don't have time to waste here, so let's make quick work of them and move on to the next group," Ren said as he could see the heroes and police officers in trouble. "Yeah, seen this is happening all over the city," Midoriya replied back with a serious expression. The two Gobusters then tapped onto their transpods in sync to summon their weapons for battle. "Transport!" a voice from both the transpods announced. Then two Sogon blades digitally materialize in front of them, as the Busters grabbed the blades with their right hands. Seeing the new threat before them, the buglars in the area ignored all the heroes and police officers, and charged towards the Gobusters to kill them. "Take the injured and get them to safety, right now," Ren ordered the heroes and officers, before gripping his blade tightly and charged at the Vagas in a blink of an eye with his super speed. "Hey, kid, stop!" a random cop shouted, only to be ignored. "No time for that. Just let us deal with these," Midoriya argued back to them, right before jumping into the scene so quickly that no one could stop him from entering the fray. Ren was running toward the buglars at high speed and quickly cuts down each one of the Vagas grunts in an instant, knocking them back into the ground. Then stopping in place right next to Buglar as he appeared out of nowhere, before striking the robot head clean off with him holding his blade in a reverse hand grip while spinning around at a 180 degrees angle to swing his sword into another buglar that coming at him. Soon after more buglar charged toward the red buster to attack him at once, but he jumped right over them and to a nearby street lamp pole as he grabbed the pole with his left hand to swing back around to drop kick most of the buglar to pieces, before landing onto one knee. Ren noticed the ones he didn't take out coming at him from behind with their blasters pointed at him and immediately barrel rolled on the ground forward to safety while evading the laser fire, before he got back up on his feet then used his hyper speed to disappear in a blur to circle back at the buglars and destroyed them an instant. Midoriya ran over to close his enemies he was near then jumped straight up into the air with his right fist above himself, and come back down on top of a group of robots before slamming his fist into them with his super strength that breaks all the buglars to pieces and leaving a big crater hole on the street ground. Midoriya wasn't done yet, as he back kicks another buglar into a nearby car with enough force that takes it out of the fight and then began to slash at more buglar approaching him. Suddenly his reflexes kicked in to avoid a laser blast at him on his right side from a grunt before running toward the buglar while blocking the laser fire with his sword. When he was close enough the blue buster shifted his body to the left side to not only dodge the attack but also slide behind the Vagas, as he then grabbed Bugler's body and used its own weapon to open laser fire on the Vagas robot allies with him take out a good number of them before taking out the buglar he was controlled by cutting the robot's backside. The police and the heroes were in shock and awe seeing the level of speed, skill, and power this Sentai was displaying. It had such an impact that they just stopped fighting and let the two Gobusters handle this instead. They were massacring the enemies with such ease and the number of monsters was quickly decreasing by the seconds and they were staying down unlike before. When everything seemed bleak for them Gobusters rushed into aid and single-handedly took care of the threat without many issues. Before too long the two busters made quick work of the grunts, as they finished off the last of them in a matter of seconds. The battle was now over with all of the Vagas in the area were destroyed and the two boys was without a single injury. The police, soldiers, and heroes couldn't believe it, two teenage boys defeated all of the monsters alone and came out unscathed. It was like a miracle when they started to lose hope, for they now understood how special the Gobusters were beyond the appearance of a normal boy. Already that's the last of them. Midoriya said letting out a breath of relief, as he was surrounded by broken bodies and robotic parts of the buglar. Nice work the both of you. Nick said driving up to them. You really showed those buglar who's boss. Yeah, but our work isn't done just yet. Ren said putting away his blade, as he turned to his partner. These attacks are happening all over the city. So we got our work cut out for us if we're going to stop the Vagas. Then it might be in our best interest to split up for now. Midoriya suggested to him. If we divide and conquer, we'll cover more ground that way. Good call, and if something happens you can use your morphers to contact one another. Nick said getting a nod from the two of them. Hey, kids. A male soldier called out to them. Huh. Ren and Midoriya turned around to see the police officers, soldiers, and heroes approaching them. Hey, are you alright? Midoriya asked them concerned. We're just fine, all thanks to you young men. Edgeshot said to them calmly as he crossed his arms. We are in your debt Gobusters. Yeah, sure. Now if you'll excuse us, we got a planet to save. Ren said getting back on Nick. Hey, where are you kids going? Mount Lady asked them frustrated and confused that the kids did her job for her and made it look easy. What do you think? Midoriya said to her as if it was an obvious question. The city is in danger, and our duty as Super Sentai is to stop the Vagas from destroying everything. Vagas? The police officers, soldiers, and heroes all thought together. Look kids, we appreciate the help. But you should leave this to you Crimson Riot said before he was interrupted by the Red Buster. Listen to me and listen good all of you. Ren screamed at them with seriousness. The ones responsible for this attack are unlike anything any of you all have ever faced before. If we don't stop them now, the city along with the rest of the world will be destroyed. So this really isn't the time for your usual breaking the hero laws bullshit, because me and my friends are the only ones who can stop the Vagas, before they can spread their chaos throughout the rest of the world. We're going to do everything we can to stop them, while you guys focus on getting as many people as you can to safely. This is the only way to save the city and everybody in it. You can't attempt and arrest us, when the we're facing is an army of killer robots. He finished saying his piece to them, as they couldn't say anything back with how he snapped at them like that. At this point in time, the two boys didn't care what the police, soldiers, and heroes decided to do or say to them. They quickly ran off in different directions, with Ren driving down the street on his motorcycle and Midoriya running down the alleyway to stop the Vagas. Hey, come back here. Mount Lady ordered, annoyed. How dare you both upstage me then run away? Is she serious right now? Crimson Riot asked, annoyed. I don't even think she cares. Gunhead agreed while rubbing his neck. Have you no shame, woman? Edgeshot said in a tone of disappointment. And in any case, we should focus on helping the civilians right now. Right. Everyone, except for Mount Lady, agreed to the idea before getting back to work. Unknown to them, in a nearby alley, Himiko was so happened to be in the area while trying to avoid the Vagas assault and got the chance to watch the entire battle from a hidden position. I finally find you, Gobusters. Himiko said with a gleeful smile on her face, before starting to follow one of them as she had a dying to meet them. Meanwhile, in another part of the city, Ryukyu flew in the sky and frowned as she led Nijire-chan to a large building that was located deep within the city. Ryukyu had recently received a report from the police which led her to the said building full of civilians who were under attack by the Vagas. So Ryukyu, what's our next move? Nijire yelled at her hero mentor, as they'd been helping anyone they could find seen arriving on the scene. To make sure that this place secure. Ryukyu said as she grimly waited for reinforcements. Although Ryukyu wanted to put an end to this madness quickly, she knew that blindly charging into danger was risky at best. After all, there was no telling how many more buglars were in the area, since their powers were having not that much effect on them. Suddenly, Ryukyu and her Nijire heard someone ask, "Do you guys need a hand?" As they turned to see who it was, they saw Fat Gum, Sun Eater, Lemillion, Hound Dog, and a bunch of soldiers together. Hey, look, Ryukyu, it's Fat Gum, Sun Eater, Lemillion, and Hound Dog. Nijire happily said as she quickly flew down towards them with Ryukyu following right behind her. Somehow I'm not surprised to see you here. Fat Gum yelled towards them from the ground. You two aren't exactly hard to find since there aren't many heroes who can fly. He said, watching Ryukyu switch back to her human form. Hey. What are you guys doing here? Nijire said, approaching her two schoolmates. After we separate from Midoriya's place, we ran into Fat Gum while fighting those robots and saving civilians. Mirio said with a smile, before frowning a bit. But those things were taught to beat. I know, right? No matter how many times I've blasted them with my quirk, they just keep getting back up. Nijire said with her finger up in agreement. I really want to go home. Tamaki muttered with his head down with fear, as he just wanted this over with. Please tell me that the rest of the civilians in the area are gone at the very least. Ryukyu asked them. Hound Dog growled as he spoke to her. I don't smell that many human scents in the area. So it's safe to say that we managed to evacuate them in time. He said, making her sigh in relief. But I smell those things around here too, and there are a lot of them. He said, making everyone worry as they knew who he was talking about. Then we shouldn't engage the enemy unless the situation calls for it. A female soldier said to them with a professional tone like a soldier. Hopefully, it won't come down to. Then suddenly, a horde of buglars emerged from a building, as they spread out to cause as much mayhem as possible and attacked the humans or made their way towards the city. Damn it. There's more of them pouring in on us. A male soldier yelled as he started shooting at the buglar closest to him with the other soldiers following suit. We might run out of bullets at this rate. He complained out loud. Then conserve your ammo. We might need it for later. Hound Dog growled as he glared at the incoming Vagas. Nijire-chan, I need you to help evacuate the civilians. Ryukyu ordered her student as she took her dragon form once more. Sun Eater and Lemillion, go and help Nijire-chan. Fat Gum added in while hold back a few buglars. Understood. Nijire-chan, Sun Eater, and Lemillion said together. The both of them soon got airborne to fly off towards a nearby market district to evacuate the civilians there. Everyone else now is a good time to go all out. Hound Dog suggested to the people there. You got it, Hound Dog. A random hero said as he started his quirk to create multiple copies of himself before rushing at the buglars to slow down the horde of enemies. Fat Gum, Hound Dog, the soldiers, and other heroes soon stood by the hero clone's side as they all fought against the incoming robots. Meanwhile, Ryukyu quickly transformed into her winged dragon form so that she could get airborne and take down a few Vagas, as the other buglars set their sight on her and fired laser blasts at her to shoot the woman down. But a brave soldier pulled out a combat knife and began to crave up the buglars firing at the dragon heroine as they stopped their attack on her. Thank you. Ryukyu said being grateful for the assistance gives the pro-heroine and her allies a chance to focus on other threats. No problem, ma'am. The Japanese soldier replied as he got ready to stake more grunt with his melee weapon. Although few in number, the buglars were still numerous enough to nearly overwhelm everyone there, but that wasn't going to stop them from so easily. Meanwhile, in the market district, Nijire, Mirko, and Tamaki were doing their best to evacuate the panicking civilians while keeping the Vagas at bay. However, the buglars were numerous and powerful, resistant to their quirks, as some of the buglars shot laser blasts at the Nijire-chan and Sun Eater who were flying in the quirks. Suddenly, Lemillion appeared amongst the buglars from the floor with his permeation quirk and punched at them like a speeding bullet. Full charge, output 30. Nijire shouted while flying towards a group of buglars, as she channeled her wave motion quirk around her hands into a single point. Nijire wave. She then shot her hands forward to release a powerful long-ranged double surge at the buglars and flinging them away like ragdolls in the process. Tamaki used his manifest quirk to change his body's physical characteristics to animal parts of the food he ate today, then he turned his fingers into red octopus tentacles and extended at buglars to capture them in place before using this chance to slam them directly into other buglars. The robotic grunts fell toward the ground with them and some were unable to move, with Mirko gaze quickly turning to Nijire-chan and Sun Eater. Focus on the evacuation. I will buy you two as much time as I can. Mirko said to his friends with a serious tone. Both Nijire and Tamaki nodded at their friend before focusing their attention on helping the fleeing civilians. Okay, Lemillion. Tamaki replied back to him. Yeah. We'll leave these guys to you. Nijire shouted back as she and Tamaki flew away. Then Mirko's turned their attention towards the second wave of buglars and got ready, with him taking a fighting stance. Okay guy, let's dance. Mirko said with a smirk of confidence before running forward at the enemy. In another part of the city, hundreds of people ran screaming throughout the streets. Pro-heroes and law enforcement members were doing their best to fight off the buglars, but with little success. The Vagas forces seemed to come from every direction. They jumped over cars, leaped on people, slashed them with their weapons, blast them with their lasers, kill them. It was a complete SHT show. The pro-hero Death Arms ran down the street while Kamui Woods swung from rooftop to rooftop. The two were making their way to Tatooine Station after reports of monsters appearing out of thin air all over Muzudafu and attacking the city. So what do you think the situation is? A group of villains just suddenly showed up and attacks the city? Death Arms asked the Flora-based hero. Maybe, but we've been getting reports that they're active all over Muzudafu, and the heroes are struggling to contain the situation. Kamui Woods replied in a grim tone. A third voice caught the two heroes off guard. Or it could be another instant villain case like in Narahata 5 years ago. The two looked back to see the turbo hero, Ingenium, running not far behind them. Ingenium? What are you doing here? Death Arms asked. I heard what was happening, and run over here with my sidekicks to help stop these villains. Ingenium replied while running beside them. The trio ran past several fleeing civilians before reaching the station's entrance. A pit formed in their stomachs when they saw the buglars that were reported, destroying the station with their firearms that shoot laser blasts from them. What the hell are those things? Death Arms' eyes widened at the sight of the horde of robots. The robots' monsters turned their heads to the three heroes, as the buglers' one eye flashed red while stating their sights on their new targets and charged at them, with the heroes preparing themselves for battle. Death Arms threw one of the buglar across the street, only for the Vagas grunt to get back up like it was nothing before pointing its blaster at the man and firing multiple laser shoots at him. Oh, SHT. Death Arms shouted with widened eyes before narrowing, avoiding the laser's blasts, as he didn't notice three more buglar attacking him from his blind spot and falling on the ground in pain. Arg. Where the hell did these guys even come from? I don't know, but they're a lot stronger than they look. Kamui Woods shouted back to him, as he tried to restrain a group of the monsters, but they kept slashing through his roots. Damn it, whatever they are, they're not going down without a fight. Ingenium tried to fight them off, but there were too many of them surrounding him, and his kicks didn't look like they were affecting them at all. Arg. There's too many of them. Somebody calls for more Ingenium was then interrupted by one of the buglar slamming into the hero, knocking him to the ground. Ingenium. Death Arms and Kamui Woods cried out to their fallen comrade before the buglars fired more laser blasts at them, which hit both heroes dead on before more explosions occurs in the area. This made Death Arms and Kamui Woods scream out in pain before joining Ingenium on the ground, with the three made wincing in pain at how easily they were beaten. DMN, it. Death Arms commented in pain. They're too strong for us alone. Kamui Woods said while holding the spot he got hit in. We need to get out of here. Ingenium suggested as he noticed the buglars approaching them. The buglars were about to finish the heroes off for good until some of them were hit by laser blasts and knocked back on the ground to death. This stopped the Vagas as they and the three heroes turned their heads in the distance of where the laser fire come from, and was shocked and surprised to see who was responsible for it. That's enough, you Vagas some. Midoriya shouted at the robotic villains while pointing his Ishigan Buster at the enemies before charging in at them to save the down pros. No way. Death Arms yelled out in disbelief. It's that kid again. Kamui Woods shouted in equal shock. The Blue Buster. Ingenium said as he watched Midoriya fighting off the horde of monsters alone. Midoriya swiftly kicks a buglar in front of him with a spinning kick and another right behind him, making them fall over before quickly spinning his body to the right to avoid a laser shoot at him as the boy leg sweeps the buglar on the floor and uses his super strength to punch the grunt out of commission. The Blue Buster then blocks an incoming punch on the left of his side by raising his forearm and soon struck the buglar with a knee jab to the gut, then a backhand to its head that takes the robot out, right before Midoriya continues his assault by shooting down 6 more buglar to the left and right side, making them spark and blowing up into pieces. With a path now cleared for him, Midoriya made his way to the 3 pro heroes who were getting back up on their feet to confront the boy. It's you again. Kamui Woods shouted as he didn't know how to feel about being saved by a vigilante. Get the civilians in the area to safety. I'll deal with the Vagas. Midoriya ordered the 3 heroes, while firing his Ishigan Buster at more enemies surrendering them. Vagas? You know what these things are? Ingenium asked as he was watching the vigilante making quick work of the robots. Midoriya dodged the question when he saw a trio of buglars about to attack at the turbo hero behind his back with their laser blasters. Move! Midoriya yelled out while pushing Ingenium out of the way and slammed his right fist into the ground to create a mini quake that stopped the Vagas laser assault, before quickly shooting down the three of them. Listen, there's no time to explain this. Just let me handle the Vagas, while the three of you focus on evacuating everyone to safety. He said before running off to fight more Vagas, and leaving the three men even more confused. Hey, wait kid. Death Arms shouted and was about to run after the vigilante until Ingenium placed a hand on his shoulder to stop him. Ingenium? Come on, let's do as he says and get the civilians to a secure location. Ingenium suggested, which shocked the two men. But what about these things? Kamui Woods asked as he was referring to the Buglars. We'll just leave it to the kid since his attacks are more effective on these Vagas than ours. Ingenium said as he didn't like the idea of leaving these to a vigilante. But had no cause as his duty to protect the people comes first. Death Arms and Kamui Woods had the same mixed feelings as their fellow hero, but agreed to what Ingenium suggested and started to search for any civilians in the area to help. Meanwhile, Midoriya was seen fighting his way through the horde of robots with him switching out his Ishigan Buster for Sogon Blade, as he was hacking, slashing, and punching every Buglars in his sight. It feels like there's no end to them. Midoriya said before striking down two more Buglars, before he heard the sound of someone screaming for help. Someone's in trouble. He yelled out in concern before racing in the direction of the scream. Meanwhile, in one of the evacuation shelters located in the city, Mirko was having the time of her life right now with city under attack by the Vagas. She was putting the smack down on the Vagas with brutal kicks that sent many of them flying and crashing across the street. Though Mirko was outnumbered, she still did fine, with a Buglar rushing forward to take a swing at Mirko only for the grunt's arm to be swatted down by the bunny heroine herself, who performed a bicycle kick in mid-air to block the attack before striking the machine in the face. This blow sent the Buglar crashing into the other's Buglars that takes half of the robots out with a loud crash. Die already! Mirko snarled at the Buglars as she gave one of the robots a full-forced kick, sending it flying into the window of a building. These guys are starting to get on my nerves. She said with annoyance at how hard it was for her to take them down. To say that these robots could take a beating would be an understatement, but they weren't as powerful as the villains she had been fighting. The Buglars were on their last legs, but their persistence was annoying Mirko to no end at how they wouldn't stay down. She and a few other heroes were protecting an evacuation shelter full of civilians that were escorted to safety. I wanted to fight a Sentai enemy, but not like this. Mirko said to herself before jumping out of the way from an enemy attack before leaping off several objects in the area and charging at a group of Buglars. Luna Rush! She shouted out while rushes towards her opponents and pummeled them with a series of powerful kicks, which take most of them out. Then Vagas reinforcements arrived and charged at the rabbit heroine, making Mirko jump into action again and began wrecking shop on all of them. Whatever. I'll just kick their ass and keep everyone safe from these evil tin cans. Mirko declared with a savage grin as she was not going fall behind the other world heroes. Elsewhere in the city, Ren and Nick were rushing to help as many people as possible could, with them rescuing and evacuating injuries and trapped civilians to safety, and helping the pro-heroes and law enforcement who were engaging the Vagas in a battle. They were currently racing across the highway toward the destruction the Vagas caused, hoping to save as many people as they can in time. Nick in his motorcycle form was faster than a normal bike, which gave them an extra boost of speed. This is nuts, Ren. They're everywhere. The Buddy Royd exclaimed as he's never seen so many Buglar in one place before. It's a crisis city in full swing. Yeah, and it's only getting worse by the minute. Ren said, swerving to the right to turn down a street block to see a group of civilians fleeing from a horde of Buglar trying to hunt them down. Nick, it's go time. He shouted while hitting the accelerator on the bike to save those people. Okay. Nick yelled out in determination. When Ren speeded up his bike, he performed a wheelie with Nick, using this chance to propel themselves high in the air and fly straight at the group of killer robots. As Buglar were about to fire their lasers at the fleeing civilians, the Red Buster slammed right down in the middle of the group of Vagas and takes out a few of the while also stopping their assault. "Get some!" Ren exclaimed while he skidded his bike around to do a donut that knocks away the remaining Buglar around him, with them falling on the ground in pieces. After the danger has passed for a moment, the people walked up to the two and gave their thanks. "Thank you," a female said, thanking him before bowing. "We'll never forget what you did for us," she said, with the others joining in to give their own thanks. "Don't worry about it, but it's still not safe here for guys. So head to the nearest evacuation center," Ren said to them before driving off, as he just waved him off before doing as they were told. "Luckily we made it in time, huh?" Nick said to his partner. "It was, but we can't relax just yet, Nick," Ren said to them before pulling back the lever to increase his speed to head to their next destination. "We're not going to let a single person die on our watch," he declared. "Hell yeah, we ain't, brother," Nick said to Bak as he was getting fired up too. Then the two heard the sound of multiple voices screaming out in terror, as they knew where to go next. "Over there, Red Buster. I see trouble," Nick said to him. "Already on it," Ren said, turning in the direction of the screaming. Meanwhile, near a corner of a wall, Mina and Kirishima were cornered by several Buglars and were fighting them off as best they could. "DMN, these guys are tough as hell," Kirishima said as he was covered in scratches, after taking a bunch of hits from the Vagas. "Why isn't my quirk working on them? I am warning you. Stay back or I'll melt you," Mina shouted before spraying some acid from her hands and hitting one of the Buglars in the chest, but all it did was slide off the robot's body with no effect. What? Why didn't it work?" she yelled in shock and disbelief. The Buglar then raised his weapon in the air and was planning to kill Mina with it, making the pink-skinned girl scream out in terror as she looked away with arms up in a defensive manner. "Mina! Look out!" Kirishima shouted in great worry before leaping in front of Mina and taking the bugler's hit met for her. "Ack!" he yelled out in pain before being sent flying into a wall and to the floor next. "Kirishima!" Mina cried out to her own friend, before rushing to his side on her knees. "Are you okay?" she asked, shaking him. I am sorry, I wasn't strong enough to protect you, Mina," Kirishima said while groaning in pain, as he was lucky his body was hardened, or else that blow would have killed him for sure. Get out of here you can, Mina. Leave me here and save yourself," he said as he is weak to move and would only slow her down. "No. I'm not leaving you here to die, you big idiot," Mina shouted with tears falling from her eyes, as she tries to pick him up from the floor. "We're getting out of here together. So get up, Kirishima," she said as the Buglars began to attack them once more. But before they could do anything to the two teens, someone ran at the last moment and kicked one of the Buglar hard, which flew into the Buglars, that knocks all of them down on the ground. This greatly shocked Mina and Kirishima, as they looked at their rescuer in surprise and recognized him immediately from the live broadcast yesterday. "Wait. Aren't you?" Mina said in shock, as she didn't get the chance to finish her sentence. "Take your friend and get to safety, right now," Midoriya told them, as the Buglars started to recover from his surprise attack and charged at the robots. The group of Buglars all swung their swords at him, as Midoriya raised his sword to block each of their attacks and slashes them down one by one. But what about you?" Mina asked in concern while helping Kirishima from the floor. "I'll stay behind here to hold off the Vagas, while you two run for the entrance," Midoriya said, grabbing a Buglar and holding the robot in place with a SBMSN hold. "What? Are you crazy?" Kirishima asked in a shaky tone. "There are dozens of those guys. Aren't you scared?" Terrified, but that won't stop me from doing what needs to be done, Midoriya answered before lifting the robot above his head with his super strength. I'm going to make sure the Vagas won't lay a hand on you both. He then threw the buglar into other buglars that take them out in an instant and cleared a path to the exit. Mina and Kirishima looked at the Sentai in both awe and amazement at how heroic he was being right now. You ready? Midoriya asked, getting a nod from the two. Then run for it. Mina and Kirishima ran to the entrance as fast as they could, with Mina holding onto a hurt Kirishima, while Midoriya used his Ichigan Buster to shoot down any buglar that approached them. They were almost at the entrance when a buglar suddenly jumped at the two teens and was going to attack them. Oh, CRP! Kirishima and Mina both shouted, as they then looked up at the monster as it thrusts its weapon at them. Time slowed down for them as the blade was about to hit the two of them, but Midoriya then slammed into them, knocking the two out of the Vagas' attack path before using his blaster to block the assault. Midoriya took this chance for a counterstrike and punches the buglar in the gut, which sent it flying back into a wall and taking the robot out. Are you alright? Midoriya asked, looking back at the frightened teens. Why, yeah, we're fine, thanks to you, Mina said as she had a slightly frightened expression. That was real manly of you helping us like that, bro, Kirishima said with a nod and a tiny grin. No need for that, I was just doing my duty, Midoriya said with a smile before more buglar showed up to kill them. You two got to go. I'll handle them. He ordered them, as the two teens then ran out the entrance while Midoriya ran back to face the Vagas and shot down a couple that ran at him before switching up his weapon to the Sogon blade. Midoriya continued to take out more buglar in close-quarters combat with his blade and was about to attack another buglar when he saw something at the corner of his right eye. He turned to see three buglar aiming their blasters at him. CRP. Midoriya thought as he began frantically dodging the laser blasts before some unexpected happened. An ash-blonde-haired teenage girl with a knife suddenly appeared behind the robots and stabbed her knife into one of the buglar, which breaks upon impact. This made everyone stop fighting and looked at the teenager with bewildered expressions as they did not accept this, as the teenage girl down at her broken knife with disappointment. "Aw man, and that was one of my favorite knives too," Himiko complained with a pouting expression. "Ha!" Midoriya cried out in both shock and confusion at the appearance of the unknown girl. "Who in the world is that?" Then before anything else was done, the three buglar immediately attacked Himiko to kill her. "Look out!" Midoriya cried out while rushing toward them to help the girl. Himiko saw this attack coming before jumping over the Vagas assault with incredible acrobatic skills, reflexes, and agility like a professional gymnast, which surprised the Blue Buster. Then while in mid-air, Himiko revealed three smaller knives in her left and swiftly throws them at Bugler's head with perfect accuracy but bounces off them much to her annoyance. "Why won't you just die?" Himiko shouted at them while landing on the floor, with the buglar pointing their blasters at her and was about to fire. But Midoriya arrived just in time to cut them down with a single strike, with them falling to the ground before exploding. "That was too close," Midoriya said, letting out a sign with all the Vagas in the area taken care of before looking up at the mysterious girl who helped him. "So thanks for th. You know, you're really cute," Himiko said in a cooed voice. "But you know what, I think you would look even cuter covered in BLD," she said with a creepy grin that freaked the boy out a bit. "What?" Midoriya said in a panicked tone, at the girl who was looking at him with an enjoy look on her face. Himiko's smile twitched as she stared at the boy before getting closer to him, which made Midoriya back up from her. "Is she a villain or something, because I don't have time to deal with one right now?" Midoriya thought as he had his guard up around her, but the boy went into a dead sprint towards her to restrain her. Himiko in response leaned forward at Midoriya to stab her knife into the boy, only for her target to catch her by the arm and hold her still as Himiko struggled to break his tight grip. Midoriya then uses a judo throw to swiftly send Himiko to the ground on her back, before using his free hand to quickly grab the girl's wrist and twist it to make her drop her knife on the floor. The next thing Himiko knew, she was being placed in a SBMSN hold by her target, with her looking into the cute boy's green eyes as he had a serious expression on his face. You. Himiko said with a relaxed smile crossed her face, despite the situation. Heh, guess I always was a bad girl after all, huh? And now the devils come to drag me to hell for it. The smile turned resigned. Please be gentle with me, Mr. Blue Buster. Midoriya faltered. What? He'd been half expecting her to be some crazed stalker or criminal and start fighting back, or at least try to bite him. What are you talking about? He asked. Me, my quirk, everyone says it's evil, so I have to be normal, Himiko replied. What? Midoriya yelled out as he stared at her with widened eyes. There's no such thing as an evil quirk. I mean, there are some that can be used for evil easier than others, but every quirk has that potential. That's so dumb. The only thing stupider is saying you're automatically evil because of it. He quickly got off her with her sitting up as well. What kind of idiot told you such garbage? He knew that Ren was right about something being wrong with their society, with how bad discrimination, as if they made a young girl like her suffer over having a certain quirk. So alright folks, that's all for today. Stay tuned for part 7. Do subscribe, like and share for more such videos. Also check out the story and author GokuMuto on FANFICTIONnet. Press the bell icon to be notified first on release. See you in the next video. Till then, goodbye.